Okay, so let's continue with questions, background questions on the issue, and then once we'll go past that, we'll talk about solutions, but do we have any more questions on the situation? That one. Has anybody looked at the original planning application for the school and looked at the traffic impact analysis to see like what scenarios they had included? And this may be a question more for Jason, I don't know, but what scenarios they had included in their analysis to see if the school is operating the flow of traffic through the school the same way that they had intended when they had a traffic engineer look at the site.
Yeah, I may have missed the first part.
So I was just curious if anybody has done this yet, and if not, maybe this is one of the things that can be done over the next month, but look at the original land use application for the school and the traffic impact study to see how they envisioned the flow of traffic to go in the school and out to the public streets when they did their traffic study, to see if the school is operating the same way that the traffic engineer envisioned it would be.
Yeah, that's something I can do. And I actually had a note to kind of do something similar for the striping out in Elwart Road. I don't know if anything can be done to get through traffic to go through there in the morning. So I think for all these big projects, we should really look at the traffic analysis, after it's built. So yeah, I can dig into that and see. I can actually reach out to the traffic engineer that the school district hired to complete the study from DKS and ask him. So I should be able to give you at least some sort of an update on that at the next meeting.
So I guess my only clarifying question is, you said the gate on Cougar is closed, but they open it for buses. So someone's there keeping everybody else out.
The sensor.
The pass sensor to get them through it. Yeah.
So one of the things, a possible solution, is identifying when the buses actually arrive. So that they can get into their proper lane and then opening the gate for everyone else after.
It all happens all at the same time.
Okay, because sometimes I know that there was an issue with a different school, with Butte School District. And they entered all in the same area as far as pickup. And so we basically said, why don't the buses pick everyone up first? And then we'll open the same lanes later on for the parents to pick up their children after the buses leave. I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way if we know exactly what time the buses go. So then if there was a way for the school district, but again, it's the school district's policy in regards to opening and closing that gate. Something to consider, but one question I do have also is it a 30-minute congestion period? Is that it in the morning and in the afternoon?
Like I said, our initial analysis would roughly say that, probably 45 minutes type issue.
Okay,
Increasing as we get closer to that time for school start, or the exit. But like I said, we want to do more analysis and that's part of our next month's analysis is to kind of see those timeframes at all the different points on each day of the week. Be able to kind of see if there's consistency there. It's not just isolated to, the random data. Just to give you a full picture. Our belief is that you'll see that it is fairly consistent, but we want to be thorough and give you accurate info. And we'll give the school district active info too. And we're seeing it.
So, one more question before we kind of add more solutions that, since the complaint has come in, or maybe on your own separately anyways, have you guys been in touch with the school district over this particular issue? And if so, what kind of communication have you guys had?
Me being in Sherwood, so I'm just receiving this information from others, but this was addressed last school year in regards to traffic issues at that time when schools were back operational. I think some general recommendations were given at that time. Obviously a different administration for the high school and for our school district, and at that time they did not move forward with the recommendations that we put on the table.
I have a question. Is the Elbert Road, is that Washington County? Or it is, okay, and so would be limited? Or we would obviously need to get approval from Washington County if we did anything, for example, with signal timing or like one, just because I was thinking about the solutions, which I know we're gonna get to next. But if we, restricted the left turns during peak hours at Elbert, if we allowed the back roadway to be open.
Yeah, that would currently take buy off from Washington County. We're in the process of closing that project out and transferring it to the city. And that's going to take some time. So yeah, county would have to approve changes to Elbert striping, things like that. And then out on the highway, ODOT would have to approve any lane changes that are on the highway approach as well. We've had some requests for changing those two throughs that go to Sunset, making them one of a dedicated right. So ODOT would have to approve that. And I'm gonna at least reach out to the traffic engineer for the state and ask how we can do that sort of a thing.
Well, as far as timing for the signal goes at Elbert and Hay, when it's congested to that point, it doesn't really matter what you do with the timing because it's essentially gridlocked. Everything is moving so.
Yeah.
Well, unless you remove the left turn going northbound. So like the northbound Elbert left turn, if we restricted that and made it a right in only and right out, and then that would be contingent on having the back roadway open for people taking the circle and then the back roads.
Talking about opening up this.
Well, if we're moving the discussions, what I would suggest more is keeping those dual lefts and having traffic go north, then west, then south and east and out in a counterclockwise fashion around the school rather than around the circle and clockwise in with the same direction as the buses. That would be a better path because then the buses wouldn't be stuck in congestion with parents, and parents would be going the opposite direction in a counterclockwise fashion around into the student parking to drop their kids off and back out. So that if you could adjust the gate in some way where normal traffic would go south out and the buses are coming north in to their drop off points, then that's how you would alleviate it. Because the way Haight is set up, the inner left turn is an access only lane into the high school, and the outer left turn goes down to the access road, and they're separate lanes. There's occasionally some merging going on, but typically that far left lane is always the one that backs up because everyone knows that access road is closed. So the outer left turn lane is it has very little use right now. But if that access road were open where people could go all the way around and drop their kids off, then both lanes would get used a lot more in the left turn. And it would likely open up Elward northbound quite a bit more because you would have so much more capacity going down to Haight and then going down south to the backside of the school to really open up the amount of cars that get stuck in that little section trying to get into the high school, the front entrance of the high school.
So
That makes sense.
before we start talking too much about ideas, I guess I want to clarify a couple things. The circulation of traffic within the high school property is private property. It's nothing the city can force. We can toss out ideas. We can help you brainstorm. So when you talk to the school, you guys can talk through ideas, but ultimately it's their choice how they want to operate their school. Outside of if they're operating different than what their land use approval suggest or had. Is that a true statement?
Yes, Jason, you want to weigh in on that?
I mean, we can, the county and the city are partners. I mean, we can pursue changes, but yeah, I don't think that the hate signal is really a priority here. I mean,
I guess what I'm trying to say is,
What
I
can
don't
you,
want to get too, I think it's good for us to toss out ideas and brainstorm so that you guys can have those conversations. And if we come up with something that maybe you haven't thought of, then it's something you could share with them. But I want to make sure that we all understand that, like, we can say, yeah, open the gate, but we don't, the city doesn't control the gate. So
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's,
our places on this
Yeah.
issue.
Yes.
You guys can enforce traffic laws, so people are parking illegally, you can ticket them. That might make people change their behavior and make the school change their activity. So there's that, you could do that, or maybe maybe the traffic study and the land use approval said that gate was supposed to be open to have traffic flow out there, and then you probably have some enforcement mechanism there. But outside of that, I'm not really sure. I think this is kind of like a brainstorming, let's work together session. So.
You're absolutely correct. As far as on-site, it is private property unless the traffic impact analysis identify the flow or the land use application identify the flow on-site. Because sometimes they don't even identify that. The traffic impact analysis is how is this proposal, this new high school impacting the roadways nearby? So
That's-
those are
Yeah,
so we could definitely look at the land use application that came in, see if they addressed it. But it's not typically a criteria outside that there needs to be a pedestrian connection from parking to the main office or the school. And they're doing that as far as their parking lot. But as far as the flow, typically, it's not an approval criteria that they would have to show that to us, but hopefully they've addressed it in the traffic impact analysis.
so I guess my suggestion would be that we hear from staff what ideas you have, what you've talked to them about, what you're planning to go next as far as what you're gonna look at. And then maybe we can share ideas we have and suggestions for things that they can do over the next month to further their understanding of the situation. As sounds like it's gonna come back again next month, so we're not making a decision today. But I feel like this is probably a pretty hot button topic, for the city as a whole, as well as probably some of us here, so I don't want to get bogged down in a lot of the weeds and maybe just kind of focus it that way.
but we would really as staff prefer to kind of do the analysis for a month, give you the full package that we can give you, what we're seeing. So that, you know, when we're giving some ideas and recommendations, it's a little well-rounded.
So with that, does anybody have anything in particular that they would like to suggest that is part of their analysis? To help us make a better decision, or help us, I guess we're not really making decisions, but to help us have that conversation next month.
I have a question about so on Elwert, north of Hayde, that, where it cues back up to Hanley, you were saying, is that also going to be an intersection you'll look at when you do this analysis? Or, I feel like that intersection can also get a little crazy and the speeds can be pretty high there at that conflict, at that T intersection.
No, we won't. That would need to be a separate complaint issue. The Hayde the Hanley intersection. We're merely looking at how far back traffic is really just getting stacked up on over in relation to Hanley.
I have a question regarding, I mean, this would be more, I guess, for the county than, heading northbound on Elwert towards the signal at Hayde. There, after the roundabout, there's 2 lanes that merge into one, right? And then it goes to the dual laps. In between that, there is a very large center area.
We've talked about that too. And there's a turn pocket that goes onto the gravel road for the Elks Lodge, et cetera, right there, that,
Right.
yeah, these are all,
And so these are things
these
that
are all
you're
things
looking at.
that are on our thing
as
that we
possible
want to present,
solutions.
yeah, next month, yeah.
I know because I've utilized that with my truck when I have to work on that beacon right there. It's a good place to stop my truck that's safe.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm sure that Jason will look at this when you're looking at the traffic impact analysis, but you mentioned that, Nora, that the study might not show internal circulation. I think that's true, but the study, it very much should have shown the traffic numbers in and out of driveways. So if you look at that driveway on Kruger and it shows a bunch of cars coming in and out, then you know they assumed that gate was open. And if the gate was closed, it would change that study, put everything on hay, and it would have probably changed that whole intersection and all the improvements associated with it. So
You're absolutely correct.
I think that there could be a lot learned from that. It also could be that traffic studies don't consider cars go in there and park for 15 minutes and block up everything. So I don't know that that's part of it. People probably seen them go in, pick up and leave. So it might not really show anything. I don't know. I just think it's worth looking at.
We'll definitely look at it, as far as, because, we have the files, so, we can definitely read that.
Yeah, and I have access to the DKS studies for that, and I can go through them, and I hear what you're saying. I mean, are they doing what they studied? Did they say that they were going to be using those access points that they weren't, or that they aren't? So I'll look through it and report back through Dan on our findings I think that's the best way to go about it.
One thing I can say from the police department's perspective at this early junction in this is that whatever the studies say, that's the past and the present is the present. And our observations is that this isn't working. So we see it as that there does need to be solutions and recommendations. We'll be interested to present some of our thoughts and hear what your thoughts are on that too.
I completely agree. I just think if they haven't done what you've suggested, that might be something that gives you a little bit more teeth to have change.
I have another question too. Will you be collecting any new traffic data? Speaking of just kind of like looking at the analysis, like any new turning movement counts or volumes or for the school area?
Not currently in our engineering or public works budget for that location.
And we don't have any counts since the school's been open and students attending.
No, but we do have some traffic count equipment and police and then engineering, but I'll look into that, see what we can do, or if the county can do that. And we also got some pricing from Quality Counts. There's a company that collects traffic counts in the area, so I can share those at the next meeting too.
Jason, if you email the engineers of the county, like John Fasana or Stacy Shetler, you may be able to ask that directly, because we could potentially use the loops there to also collect count data. As cars go over a loop, that can be logged in the controller and counted. So potentially without costing really any money, it would just be a minor adjustment in the controller to start taking counts. You could always ask if that's something.
Yeah, for sure. I'll reach out to John. He's an old friend from years ago. So yeah, I'll give him a call tomorrow.
Cool.
Okay, does anybody have anything else that they want to recommend staff look at for the next month on this one? Or any other thoughts, comments? Okay, we'll table this one to next month. So the next agenda item 2020-004, it's like an update on the Villa Wildlife Haven and Railroad.
Ethan, that's yours.
What's this? I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Was that my item?
Yeah, just an update on the Villa Wildlife Haven and Railroad.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't hear, it was breaking up there. The Villa Road bollards, I talked to the Public Works Director and their Community Services Director, and the Parks Board had been talking about doing a project there, and so I'm gonna put the bollards in, and we're gonna kind of put an aspirational CIP project together for that Villa Road Wildlife Haven thing, but it's probably gonna, we're seeing it costing over $100,000 to fix all of the issues and ADA ramps and whatnot. So I think the approach there is to pull it offline as an aspirational CIP project. And if it meets the city council goals at some point, to get it programmed into the city budget and resolve it that way. So it's a little bit more complex than just throwing some bollards in. There's some ADA issues that we got to resolve, and then of course the Parks Board's been talking about doing something in that area for years. So we just want to make sure we get all of our bases covered on that. So short answer is aspirational CIP project.
Can you remind us the improvements that would be part of that project then for the aspirational CIP?
Well, I think the idea that Bob Galati, the previous city engineer, was discussing was putting bollards in there at Villa Road and then redirecting the private driveway to the driveway drop that was installed on Wildlife Haven. But on top of that, the Parks Board's been talking about benches and all sorts of stuff in that area. So I'm not quite sure exactly what will unfold. And I know we had a wayfinding signage project for the park going into the trail system there too. So I think it's a multi-department project.
I guess my question is, does that mean we want to close this one?
Yeah, I think you can close that one out. I think that's the Public Works Director and that was our conclusion, is it will become an aspirational CIP project with details to come.
You're all okay with that?
Yeah, makes sense to me.
I don't know if we need to vote on that, but something closing.
And so the bollards would be placed at Villa Road though, in the interim still. And then the driveway improvements would be part of the future. Sorry, I guess I'm trying to envision the.
Oh, I think
improvements.
I don't know how it all unfold, but I think it would all happen together to be directing those folks from driving down Villa Road and then directing them down to the driveway. But there's also some ADA ramps there too that we had been looking at replacing, crosswalks. So there was all sorts of stuff going on in this area that I don't think really all of it's been vetted through our city council and elected officials, but we're aware that we've always been aware that there's kind of an issue in this area, and that Wildlife Haven driveway drop should be utilized. It was intended for something. Just figure it's over the scope of the Traffic Safety Committee's budget to take care of it. And this is what we usually do through the CIP plan and in those larger projects.
Okay, anybody else have any discussion on that one? Okay, so last one is 21-005. This is also an update from you, Jason, on request for stop signs, speed bumps, or crosswalk at Old Highway 99 and Crooked River Lane.
Yeah, I talked to Bob Galati about this one to see where he had left it, and he was looking into getting some pedestrian counts in the area, and that's when I reached out to Quality Counts and got their pricing that we can share next time. And our idea, and just talking to the Public Works Director, is that we would hope that the Traffic Safety Committee would prioritize kind of which locations we want to get the pedestrian counts at, and then come up with a list, and then we can go ahead and order them. I think that was kind of our thought, and I can triple stamp that through him. I think that was kind of our thought as we prioritize locations that the traffic safety committee wants to collect pedestrian counts at and go ahead and start moving forward with that within the next few months. Bob had some other locations noted too, like a Wildlife or a Woodhaven Drive and Sunset, Timberell and Sunset. So maybe we do those in this location. And the traffic safety committee can vote on it, perhaps.
Right, yeah, I was trying to go through, I'm gonna go through the list and see what all we have outstanding for traffic counts.
Yeah, and for this one, I live right by here and drop my kids off on this crosswalk, and I know there's a vertical curve there and a sight distance issue, but I don't know if this would be the top priority for getting pedestrian counts. It's all related to school. It's more modernizing the crosswalk and putting up newer signs and making it, you know, not skewed.
That makes sense. The one that keeps coming up is that Timberell on Sunset.
Oh, I live right next to that one. Yeah, that's hot on my, I can't miss it. Every morning I have to go walk across Timberell and Middleton Road, so.
I have a question. So how long does it take to conduct a, ped study?
I'm not sure about the pedestrians, but cars, the quality counts company is super fast. They have cameras now that they put up that they can fast forward review, and some of them, I think, automate it. So I think they do something similar for pedestrian counts as well. So we're talking within 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. I'm totally making that up, to be honest. So 2 to 3 weeks, quick turnaround.
So Timberell, also Woodhaven Drive. So if I remember right, we had talked about both those intersections over various times in the last couple of years. And I think the result was we had recommended that, and I think the city agreed that they were going to do a more comprehensive traffic study of that corridor. And that's why we didn't proceed forward with anything else. So do you recall that, Jason?
I probably wasn't involved with those discussions whatsoever, but I did have a note to follow up with Joy on action plans, because I think that traffic study may be more of a hunting answer, and I think an action plan for these areas is really the tool that will allow us to get things done. At least from my perspective, the action plan would help me add improvements to our paving projects and things like that. So to have like a sub area action plan endorsed by the traffic safety committee seems like a good idea for just like this area. And we could probably identify priorities like that. But a traffic study, I heard, the previous city engineer and community development director talked about doing something on Sunset and Timberell generally, but to me, they seem like two separate areas. So I would like to pursue the action plan sort of concept, if possible, which would include traffic studies and whatnot, but just not give you a blanket answer of, yeah, we're going to do a traffic study for this whole area at some point in time. I think is not really a good answer.
The action plan, does that entail? How long does that take?
So it's a Safe Routes to School action plan, and it's typically it's 6 to 9 months. It's a whole year effort with the school district. And we have typically a parent champion, the principal, the Safe Routes to School coordinator, someone from law enforcement, in regards to sitting at the table on what the needs are specific to that particular school. So whatever school is near these intersections that you guys are identifying need improvement, through that work for that particular school, we would identify that. I mean, there's parent surveys, we do tallies of students, how we ask, or the teachers ask, how did you guys get here? Who took the bus, who got dropped off, who walked. So we do that for a whole week. I mean, we gather data we do walks to evaluate the walking shed, which is for elementary school, a mile. So we do walks around that particular school. So when Jason identifies that a possible action plan, you know, if we identify that there needs to be better improvement in regards to those crossing for that particular school, then we would pursue it in that avenue.
And all those areas that have come up in these conversations all feed to Middleton Elementary.
Elementary, okay, so that, because I do know that we have had buy-in with Archer Glen. So hopefully Middleton, you know, this next school could be a focus as far as an action plan.
Jason, I had a question. You had mentioned your paving program. Are there, do you have a paving plan for like the roads that you will be repaving over the next few years? You know, that way maybe we can look at it proactively and see if there's any leverage opportunities.
We have them in list format right now, and I'm in the process of working with staff to get those in shape files and put on a map so they can be easily shared with folks. So I can get you a list of paving projects, and I think we have like a PDF map for that, but we're definitely trying to get it all spatialized so you can see when certain phases are coming online. But do you want that? Do you want me to?
I think it'd be a nice reference, especially when we're looking at projects, if we find any
Yeah,
that are overlapping.
I agree.
I thought the reason to have a more comprehensive traffic study done between Timbrel and Woodhaven was because the transportation system plan had a project identified to put like a roundabout or something at Timbrel. There was a bit more comprehensive improvements through the corridor from Sunset through this curve east of Timbrel. And so we didn't want to get short-sighted with doing a head count study and then some localized solution that wasn't more comprehensive to the corridor through there. Maybe that's kind of where you're trying to go anyways, Jason, but.
Yeah, I always try to study the whole areas together, and then it gets a little bit harder because Sunset's a little bit more complex, but I don't know, I don't recall off the top of my head what the TSP shows at Old Highway 99W in Timberwolf. If it shows, I think it might be even a signal roundabout at that location.
I think that's right.
Okay.
I just know we've talked about this since July of 21. And I feel like we've asked for traffic counts multiple times and it got on the list to get them done, maybe a time or two, but never got done. And then the bigger picture of the corridor came up and it seemed like a bigger solution to the problem. We were just looking at it too finite. And so then the whole thing, we kind of got off our plate and we put it on city's plate to have a CIP to do a bigger project, and starting with a study for the corridor resulting in some capital improvement project. And so we closed that agenda item on Timbrel. That's what I recall anyways, for where it's at.
No, that's fine. I think that's wise to keep it in a CIP plan solution. And it's the city's issue if we're not combining our safe routes and sidewalks and ramps with our paving projects. I don't think that's the traffic safety committee's concern, although we would love support to do it all together. But
so I guess where I'm going with this is if that's still your plan is to kind of do your own study through the CIP or through city staff, it's not an agenda item on ours anymore. It's not the ones that we need to do traffic counts and put on our list. So we went down this road because we're trying to prioritize traffic counts. But I guess where I'm turning back to is that those two, Woodhaven and Timberwolf on Sunset are not locations that we would want as the traffic safety. If you want to do it to support the effort that we kind of left you guys with, that makes sense, but from the traffic safety standpoint, I think we only have one. And that's Old Highway 99. Unless I'm missing anything.
So we have less than 1 minute. I have to stop it again and we have to call you guys back. Sorry for the interruption.